Hey guys, it's me, Cap. Today's actually going to be a bit of a different video than my normal unboxing because we're not unboxing anything. As you can probably see by the title of this video, it's going to be an anime figure guide. Why am I making a guide to anime figures? Well, because I was thinking about it, and I know when I first started, I was very lost. I overpaid on a lot of things. I didn't really understand it as well as I do now that I have over 200 figures. I understand it much better than when I had zero. And also, I just kind of thought this would be a helpful video for anyone who wants to get into figure collecting so they have kind of a start. I'm also going to be eventually making how to buy from certain shops, how to use proxies, just kind of a how-to to kind of get your feet wet into figure collecting because it's a lot of information and it's kind of easier to learn when you do it, but it helps to have kind of a starting off point. So yeah. I'm going to be going over the different kinds of figures there are. Obviously, I can only use ones I have, so if you don't see one mentioned in this video, it's probably because I don't have one of that kind. But hopefully this is a good starting off point. Let me know what you think and if you have learned anything by the end. So these are the figures I'm going to be using today to show you some of the different kinds of figures. You'll notice they're all of the same character, Hosho Marin from Hololive. Reason being, I feel it works best to show you how a different character can look based on different figures, and I just think it's a nice way to kind of compare them on a sort of level ground, if you will. As you can see, there are two kinds. There are figures with joints and figures that are stationary. We're going to start with the stationary figures, and we're going to start with the prize figure. So this is a prize figure. They get their name because they're typically won at Crane Games in Japan. In America, we usually just buy them through anime figure store. They're won as prizes. So they're not exactly the most detailed figure. They don't have a lot of shading. They don't have a lot of details. They're sometimes kind of small. This one would fit in the palm of your hand, but it works really well as just if you don't have a lot of money, or you don't want to spend a lot of money, or if you're just getting started. Prize figures are a great way to start your collection. But like I said, they don't have as much detail as some other figures that we'll talk about later on. So like I said, you can see there's not a lot of detail on her. Like, her face is probably the most detailed, but there's not a lot of shading on her hair or on the cup, if any. And that's kind of what you get with prize figures because they typically retail about 20 to 30 US dollars. As you can see, there's some shading on the part of her hair, but other than that, there's really not a lot, so you get what you pay for. Next, we're going to talk about scale figures. So this is a scale figure. As you can see, it is much bigger, much more detailed, and they're also much more expensive. Scale figures typically start at about $100 to anywhere up to $500, $600, depending on the size, the character, how much detail it is. Everything matters, but you're typically not going to find them for retail under $100. As you can see, there's much more details. The paint job is much nicer. There's like metallic paint, there's matte paint, like not shiny stuff, and scale figures get their name because they're named based on how big they would be to a character's height. So this is a 1/7 scale, which means hypothetically, if you stacked 7 of these on top of each other, it would equal the character's height. Oftentimes they don't actually equal the character's height, even when they say 1/7, 1/4, 1/8, whatever. It's more just to let you know about how big the figure's gonna be. So if we get a little closer, you can see there's shading on her hair, there's shading on her bodysuit, and on her top, and on her skirt. All the lines are really neat and clean. There's no stray marks, and that's what you get with scale figures. You get much more detail, much better paint jobs, much more detailed paint jobs, like even the zipper on her boots are painted. Up next, we are going to talk about pop-up parades. So pop-up parades are advertised as being a midpoint between prize figures and scale figures. They're a little more detailed and a little nicer than your typical prize figure, but they're not as nice and not as expensive as scale figures. Typically, they're going to run you about $35 to $50 depending on the character and the size, but they're a really good way to get figures of characters that might not get a lot of merch. Up next are posable figures. On the left, we have a Figma, and on the right, we have a Nendoroid, and you can see they are both in different poses, and we're going to start talking about the Nendoroid. So this is a Nendoroid. Typically they're about 3 to 4 inches tall, and the draw of a Nendoroid is you can pose it however you want. If you want to have them smiling, frowning, crying, whatever faceplates they have, you can choose what pose they're in, what face they have. They sometimes come with different accessories, like she has her cup, she also comes with her coat, as not pictured, but that's the nice thing about Nendoroids. They're typically going to run you about $60 to $80, but the nice thing is they come with a lot of parts. Up next is a Figma. A Figma is like an Nendoroid in that it's a posable figure. It's kind of like an action figure in a sense, in that it looks just like the character, just with movable joints. They're typically about $90 to $110, and they have just as many things as Nendoroids do. Different hands, different faceplates, different accessories. So what if you want to build your own figure, or you're not satisfied with a stationary figure? So on the left I have 2 model kits, and on the right I have a garage kit, which I did not make. I'll talk more about that in the future, but we're going to start talking about model kits. So model kits here are ones that come with on plastic sheets, like with different pieces, and you cut them out and stick them together. You either glue them together or they just snap together, like the Crava one on the left. The nice thing about model kits is you get to build them yourself, so you kind of get a nice little relaxing time, or at least it's relaxing for me. You oftentimes have to put stickers on them to get the full effect of like a full paint job, but I personally really like model kits. I wish I had more of them. This Crava one is actually my favorite one I have. Up next is garage kits. So like I said, I did not paint this. I actually commissioned someone to paint this for me. I will link their information down below in case you are ever interested in commissioning them. Definitely recommend them. But garage kits are kind of like model kits in that they come with pre-cut out pieces, usually cast in some sort of resin, and you paint them, you sand them, and you stick them together. So you get to decide what colors they have, you get to decide how details. The hard thing about garage kits, you do have to have a bit of artistic ability, which is why I don't have that many. You can buy some of them pre-painted from sites like E2046 offers pre-painted ones just at a higher price. You still have to stick them together and like build them, but they're often stuck together by magnets at that point. But yeah, garage kits are pretty cool. There you have it. Those are some of the most common and most popular and kind of basic need-to-know figures that I have that I think are important to know when you start collecting. Like I said, there are a lot I didn't talk about. There are statues, there are Proplicas, there are Ichiban Kujis. If you want a part 2 to this where I talk more about figures I didn't cover in this one, or maybe even go into more depth on just figures in general, feel free to let me know. I'd be happy to make that for you guys. If you guys learned something, please let me know. Let me know what your favorite figure was. Do you have a favorite kind of figure? Love to hear about it. So just let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!